Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition podcast of Double Coverage. I'm your boy Dom. I'm with the great man Saucy and our special guest today, Charlie from Cherry Collectables. How you going, Charlie?
G'day, guys. Well, thank you.
Awesome to have you on. Thanks for reaching out, and we really appreciate you being on the podcast. You're our very first special guest, so we're very privileged to have you.
Welcome, Charlie.
Have you on. So,
yeah, thanks very much, guys. Thanks for having me. Love what you guys are doing, and it's good to see so many new things like this coming to the hobby. So fantastic. Thanks for having me again.
Awesome. Thank you. Just tell everyone a bit about yourself and about Cherry Collectables before we.
Yeah, okay. So I'm Charlie. I've already said that, but I do the marketing and the social media for Cherry. Have done since 2015. Started helping out G with that, and it's really it's a day in the life of me is sort of plugging into all the social media channels as soon as I wake up, and looking at what cards came out last night with Blake on the live broadcasts. Is there anything we need to turn into a highlight video or something like that? And then answering emails, checking comments, checking Google ad campaigns, Facebook campaigns, things like that. So it's lots of fun. I enjoy it. G took me on in 2015. We actually grew up together as kids.
From day dot.
What's that?
From day dot. I like it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. We went to primary school together down here in Tassie, and so been helping him out with social since then. We went full time with it last year, it's something that Grayson has always wanted to do. Probably was have a card store, and ever since we collected when we were kids. He ended up even working in a card store back here in the 90s, which I was always very jealous of. I never got to do, he started Cherry off the side of his desk while he was working in vegetables back in 2009, I think. Yeah, 2009. He was doing some things like live breaks in 2008, and then he started the website in 2009, and been sort of trying to grow it since then. But it's been steady, slow growth, except for the last probably 18 months, 2 years, where it's really and especially since March this year, where it's really gotten a little bit crazy.
Yeah, it has got ridiculously crazy. Funny, I actually knew G through my cousins and stuff. They're really big in the hobby and stuff. So I actually had that bit of that journey with him when he was trying to set up the card store, and I remember seeing him at Comic-Cons and streetwear events, and he was always there and showing his face. He did the right thing. He was in and amongst everything, but always in your face. Like Cherry's always there, and his marketing before the whole social media explosion for Cherry was just awesome. Just his personability and his networking. So it's really good. Very happy that Cherry is what it is today, and you are very influential and very, very welcoming to people coming into the hobby and people that are currently and have always been in the hobby, which is fantastic. Just on that growth in the 18 months, what are your thoughts on card collecting as a hobby in general over the last 12 to 18 months, and how's that been noticed at Cherry?
Oh, look, it's everybody says it. It's been a crazy time. The whole of 2020 certainly has been more traffic to the website, new people in breaks every week. That people saying in the chat, "Oh, this is my first break," and it doesn't just happen. We break. We're in breaks all over the place. Sometimes in the US, some of the guys who work at Cherry are in breaks over in the States, and it's the same thing over there. New people coming into the hobby daily, weekly, certainly. New people following the social media accounts online. I notice that every day there'll be new people who come and follow Cherry, and I have a look at their account, and they've literally got one post they've started that day, and they're getting into carts, and that's it. So it's
They don't know what they're getting themselves into, I reckon.
Look, at the moment, yeah, they're certainly joining in a. I mean, it's white hot at the moment.
Oh yeah.
It needs to really be cooled down, so that whether it's cooled down or let some steam out of the market, which I think the manufacturer, well, obviously the manufacturers know that, and I think that's what they'll be looking to do, because it's good to have a hot market, it's good to have a busy market, but you don't want a market where people are like, this is getting too rich now, and you end up people starting to leave.
Yeah.
So I think they know that. There was a really good conversation last week with one of the head guys at Panini. He's on one of the GTS podcasts, and that was a really good insight from him to have a look at what they're trying to do at the moment to take a bit of the heat out, which I think is needed. But it's really the trend was happening from our point of view in terms of website traffic and customers. It was a trend that was happening before 2019. There was sort of slow, steady growth. But yeah, probably since the middle of last year, things went, it sort of ratcheted up a notch. Yeah. And in March, again, things ratcheted up another notch to where it got like, wow, what is happening at the moment?
In regards to that, do you think this has been driven in part with now, people want to talk about the junk wax era and that era, and now where some of the population reports are getting similar to some of those cards, and people are, trying to compare and saying, oh, this is nothing like that. But what I bring it down to personally is, obviously you didn't have the internet. You didn't have all these platforms to connect the world and allow people to share their collections and essentially connect people and make a bigger community than what there already was, the start of the community, and then build that out from there with all these platforms. And you've got great people out there that are doing things like, Card Ladder. You've got other platforms like Star Stock trying to do like a day trading sort of thing. You've got heaps of breakers out there, connecting people all through video and all through Instagram and that. So in that regard, like, how do you think that's so much of a driving factor in driving this hot market around?
Look, it's definitely a new factor in if you compare today to the 90s. I mean, how much do I know about the 90s? I mean, I was a collector in the 90s, a bit of a collector, but I was only a kid, so I wasn't really making high-end trades back then. But it's the social media definitely can create a fear of missing out that can fuel, when people hit a big card, or they get their mail day in and then they post it into the Facebook group, and everyone's like, "Oh, sick card, bro!" And then it's you're like, "Oh, what can I go and grab?" Or so that I've got something awesome to post. I mean, I do it. I enjoy doing it when I get something cool. I'm sitting here in front of a bunch of pretty much worthless movie and TV cards, which I like to collect. But whenever I get one in, I like to post it on my Instagram. So that's definitely a new factor that probably, definitely contributes to the heat that's in the market in comparison to the 90s, because it just wasn't there. You know, you're largely pre-internet. First time I remember internet is like 94 or 95, and I mean that's when junk wax is sort of starting to wind down by that stage. So social media is certainly a factor, but I think my thoughts is that it's sort of what's happened in the last, certainly this year since March, has sort of accelerated a trend that was going to happen anyway. That's my thought. I think basketball cards especially were already undervalued, and it was a space that a lot of people were going to come to eventually anyway. And with the virus and the lockdowns and things like the Last Dance and those sorts of factors, it's sort of accelerated things that were maybe they were going to happen over 5 years, but instead it's happened over 6 months.
Yeah, definitely. I think it definitely was an accelerant. All those things really just pushed it and put it in your face. And obviously we've got some celebrities out there and stuff that are really onto it. But the trend was getting there. And I know we listen to Gary Vee a lot, and he's definitely correct when he says it. Like, everyone keeps going, "Oh, Gary, you made it big." And he said, "I've been talking about it for the last year and a half."
No, he's been talking about it for the last 2.5 years. I've
Yeah.
listened to him for
No,
around-
it's been like 1.5 years going crazy on it now. But he's like, but the trend's been there for the last 3 years. We could see it happening. It's just everyone, because he's talking about it more frequently, is like, "Oh, it started now. You know, it's been 1 year." It really has. I reckon he's fantastic for the hobby. I know you've discussed it in previous podcasts and clips and stuff where people have a go at Gary and stuff about posting things. And we actually discussed it on our podcast. We said Gary just puts out there what he's collecting. And that's one of those things about hobbies, and especially about trading cards. And he's correct. It is joy. Like you said, you like collecting movie and TV cards. There's something for everyone. And that's one of those things. I think like card collecting was like an underground kind of hobby, because a lot of people don't like to express what they collect because, I don't know, just society as it is. It's just they might fear of like embarrassment or ridicule. But now it's cool to collect cards, and it really gets you back in touch with your childhood. But with Gary and how he's brought into the market, I understand, like I was saying, he posts things, and we discussed it depends on how people take that information and value that information on the way it impacts the market. Because I remember he posted about Devin Booker, and people just lost their marbles, and his cards went up like 300%, and he hadn't even shot a basketball. And we're thinking to ourselves, it's what people were taking from it. He's probably going, "This is what I collect." Yeah, okay, for him it goes up in value. But for people that know Gary has a bit of impact, they were like, "Oh, we can capitalize on this." And if you start raising the prices and selling them, then all the cards get inflated. And we've discussed it. It does become a massive issue for the hobby if certain cards do get inflated, especially some modern day players, because we discuss a lot on here about vintage, and we love vintage guys. And the one thing I know Source is a big proponent of, and he pushes it every time we discuss about vintage. He goes, in the market, like a Doncic, I understand Doncic is the hot player, and I understand he's worth what he's worth, but guys like Mitchell and Tatum, and it's like we're putting money into guys that have accomplished nothing when we've got beautiful cards out there and rookie cards that are like 30 plus years old of these vintage guys that their careers are concrete solid. And we keep saying pay for accomplishments, not for potential. It's like, yeah, this card's worth $5,000, like a Luka Doncic, but it's like, well, how is a Shaq rookie card, like a Hoops, a good one is our Kobe Bryant Hoops 96 rookie card, like raw, worth $20? It's like, once it gets great, it's worth more, but not to the the value of
But a raw
Trae
Luka
Young.
Doncic is worth 60 US.
Yeah, it's like I think we just think that the pyramid is literally modern day players at the top, and vintage is kind of making its way back up now, but they're kind of down the bottom, and we just don't understand. It's like, all right, well, we'll just try and get in and get all the vintage cards now before it kind of flips. What are your thoughts on that in terms of just the vintage and the modern day comparison?
Look, I would completely agree. I'd be 100%. You might get a different answer from G if he were on. I detect not probably though. He probably would be of the same opinion, and your analysis is spot on. I mean, the career of someone like Kobe, like who did we have like last night? I mean, someone like we had a beautiful Dominique Wilkins card come out last night. Kobe, LeBron, Jordan, the guys going back, Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, all of those old cards there.
Shaq.
Shaq. I mean, one of the things about Shaq, the Shaq upper deck card is that it's so difficult for it to grade well.
Yeah, it's like 14% gem rate or something like that. I'm pretty sure I looked it up just this week.
Yeah, I think does it take the upper deck one takes the black all the way out to the border. So, I mean, it's just as soon as you get any ding on there, it's just so obvious. So I would agree 100%. Vintage players is where it's at. Vintage basketball has probably been stupidly undervalued for a long, long time. What is probably lacking from vintage cards is the excitement that you get with the modern players. So that's probably you're investing in blue chip. You know, it's always going to be there. It's always going to go up most likely.
Yeah.
But these guys, Luka's playing and he just had a good game.
Correct. Yeah.
My card went up 20%. So it's sort of
How much do you think that's factored in with like the platforms, like I said, Star Stock and Card Letter, people being able to track those values really, really quickly in those graphs, that sort of format?
Oh, it's got to be having an effect because it's just so much easier to track than it used to be. We collectors like me, like yourselves, back in the 90s, it was Beckett and that was it.
Yeah.
And it came out once a month, and it was from the US as well, so you had to try and convert it, and then how do you know your card is in the same condition as the card they had listed in the magazine and all of that? So it's just happening instantaneously rather than over a longer time period like it did before. So, but I would agree, vintage is more exciting to me, and you can see that. You can see that in Gary actually visited some friends of ours a couple of weeks ago, the Cardboard Illuminati over in the States. Grab those guys. The Cardboard Illuminati had an episode with him. They had a lot of podcasts initially where they talked about how they didn't like him, and I think Gary reached out to them and said, "Can I come on their podcast?" And he went on a couple of weeks ago, and he broke it down. I think he's got something like 80. He's 80% vintage, I think.
Yeah. I think he's 80-20. I think he said that a couple of times now. He's 80-20. And the funny thing about vintage, it's just we understand basketball and it's all iconic, and we completely agree with you. It's because Luka and those guys, they're in your face and every day you watch them. So, but you're going based on live outcomes to YouTube highlights, comparing those people that they've never seen before, and the only way they can see them is going back to try and find footage. I understand that completely as well. But we've also noticed a bit of a trend, and we've been onto it now for about a month and a half, 2 months, and it's vintage in the NFL. We happen to pick up some Troy Aikman rookie cards, score 89 rookie cards. So cards like 31 years old. We picked them up for like 50 USD, PSA 9s. They were graded, and those cards, and then John picked up a Barry Sanders rookie in the same set about a month ago now, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And those cards, like in 2 weeks, that Barry Sanders card, for example, has gone up 73% just in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, like the vintage NFL, and we looked at the projection based on NBA's in our face at the moment.
Mm.
The big market explosion in trading cards really happened around basketball.
Yes.
And NFL didn't get its chance because it finished in February with the Super Bowl. So we were thinking, our thoughts were, once it starts again and it gets all the airtime, and plus it is America's game, really, we're like, it's going to get a lot more airtime. People are going to start looking into it the way that they look at basketball. And fortunately enough for us, we were able to just like predict that, whether it's fluke or coincidence, but I reckon it's going to trend down, or trend towards all different sports, really, once it's in your face. I don't know, the baseball, we haven't looked at those vintage baseball cards. Not really sure about the prices on those, but definitely being seen now with NFL, like obviously accomplished quarterbacks and stuff. And the other prediction we had for that was the NFL trading card market was really quarterback focused. But as we've learnt from basketball, people that are like offensive players get noticed more. So we were just like, offensive players, surely their prices start to go up. And that's starting to happen a bit now as well. You got your McCaffreys and your, if Cooper Kupp has a good season as well this year, that'll go up his card. And so I think it's more like people like seeing excitement and offensive stuff. And obviously, your best defenders, then it usually happens. Unless, unfortunately, you're Rudy Gobert, it doesn't really factor across both sports. Unfortunately for Rudy, his cards and his collectors. But yeah, it's interesting how it really does cross platforms now. And just the regulation of the card prices is really something that it may happen, it may not happen. It just might continually get out of control. And this leads into my next question for you. It's like the big three grading companies, BGS, PSA, and SGC, their impact on the market, and is their final grade really an indication of the actual standard of the card? Because as we've seen in the past, some 10s, PSA 10s, the cards have got marks on them under the slabbing, not on the slabbing, and people are like, well, how is that a 10 when it's actually got defects? So I know Source has been onto this the last few weeks, and he's just been like, it's just so hard to understand.
Yeah.
And it's like a grey area because people are like, yeah, but it's got a mark on it. But then John turns around and says, but yeah, it got graded to a 10. So people really don't have to justify a card that's graded to 10, really. Like, where do you stand with that? Like the not reputation of the grading companies, because they've got good reputations, but it's more like the final word on the actual grading.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and it's a newer one for it's probably a newer one for us in Australia more than in the US, in terms of grading at all, because back in the 90s it wasn't a thing that you were doing. That it was around back then, and now people are grading all sorts of things. I think it comes from comics originally.
Yeah.
But the 10s, and there's a mark on the 10 and all that sort of stuff is a tricky one, because it's sort of the grading companies, it's what they hang their whole business on. So it's important that with the amount of cards that are being sent for grading now, speaking from our experience, the amount of cards that we're sending off to Beckett for customers here has just grown a crazy amount, and so times that by thousands, the amount of places that are doing the same thing in the States now as well. Those companies are putting on new people, they're training new people, they're trying to get through massive backlogs of people sending them hundreds of cards. So it's a tricky time at the moment. I guess we've just got to trust the numbers at the moment and have faith in them because because they've got their stake and their reputations on it, I suppose. BGS, PSA, SGC as well. I mean, they're one of the companies out of this market that it'd be silly to discount them at the moment. I do see some people, saw some people laughing at an ad recently.
They like to make fun of SGC, but I just see they've seen an opportunity, and you can't begrudge a company that has been in the industry for 20 years already for actually having a crack to trying to steal a bit of market share.
Exactly right, and I mean, I think you're exactly right, and if I was them, I'd be thinking, look, if there was ever time to make a play, this was it, you know. So I say hats off to them for trying to make that play, because there'll be new people. There are a lot of new people coming in who don't have the attachment to BGS or PSA yet, and if I'm SGC and I can snap up a few of those people, then why not?
Well, John's actually put it out there, and he said to people, like, you can go and get a raw card for like sometimes 25 USD or 30 USD, and then to get a PSA 9 or a 10 or a BGS 9.5 and 10, it's like triple to quadruple the price. But because he said the same thing, like SGC, people don't really value him as highly, but you can go get you've bought a couple 9.5s or 10s for like literally 20 USD more than the raw card, and you're like, well, it's a graded card. Why wouldn't you not spend that? You spend literally 15, 20, 30
and
bucks.
The amount of cards that I've been through, and you know, I pre-screen them before I try to send them off. You know, obviously try to save a couple of dollars, because you'd be silly to send everything off because you're just going to be out of pocket. But I get these cards and they're not in a condition to grade. So why wouldn't I just spend an extra 20, 25? All right, I'm buying an SGC, but I mean, I'm getting a graded card. It's a 9.5, it's a 10 sometimes. You know, I've bought a couple of 10s for the same price, if not as a PSA 9, or even sometimes, you know, 8.5s of PSA. So, you know, I've been picking up a few SGCs. I just think that even at that price, like I'm taking a crack on it. And I mean, if I think it's half decent and there's so much of a price discrepancy, I might send it to one of the higher graded companies, or I might just hold some of them. Especially some of the vintage ones, they look really, really good in the black slabs. So I actually like it. So it's interesting on that point. Like, I'm like, why wouldn't I just buy the graded card? It's just makes sense to me. So
yeah, and you've got that, you know, the first thing that all the companies do is it lends it the verification and the officialness of the card. So you've got no fear about having bought a fake. So that's the first thing they do when they get the card, is the verification, and then it's up to the grading what grade it gets.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
It's part of the reason why I've actually started buying. It's like I use it like it's a rule. It's like somewhere between 20 to 40 US dollars if I can pick up a slabbed card that's even like a PSA 8 to a 9, that quality. I'll just buy the card, because especially if it's a nice looking card, or a you know, a rookie card, or a nice looking card that I think that at some point the value could go up, and I could sell a few of those and then buy one really nice card. That's what I end up doing. But I just think the way that the market's going, and the growth it's had, and I've seen the growth in like Facebook groups over the last 12 months, especially, it's just like, I'm like, I think it's going to get a point where people just will realize that you're better off just buying that graded card straight out, especially if you just want something that's in for your collection, and you know, you want it in that slab, and you don't want to wait 6 months to get it from PSA and some of the BGS turnaround times. I mean, the way they've exploded. So like, I think that could be potential for some things later on.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's and it makes sense with the heat that's in the market, that people start to look at other options. So it makes complete sense.
Especially with some of the box prices and where they're going. So maybe people are just like, oh, I'd rather just buy like the PSA 8 out of that instead of buying the box for $700 or something like that. So
yes, yeah. You're chasing. You've got to change your collecting strategy rather than being able to buy the box for $200. It's okay. I want to chase that card that I really want from that set.
yeah.
Well, on the grading, I don't know how it's going to work now, but obviously we saw a couple of weeks ago with Select Dominance, so the footy cards. Talk a bit of footy on the podcast, and we know that it's massive in Australia. I just don't think people actually understand how big footy card collecting actually is in this country. I think now, because of the explosion in the card market, people are starting to go, oh, people actually collect football cards. It's been happening for ages. I remember going to like collectible meets out in Geelong and stuff, and people have their full-blown collections, and it's just amazing what they had. I remember Sandown had their collectible shows, and it was literally majority of footy cards, and you're literally trying to look for basketball cards and other stuff. And you're blown away because you're like, oh wow, look at some of the cards that these collectors actually have. With like that massive sellout for Select Dominance, which is awesome for the card market here. Do you start to see potential grading companies allowing, I don't know, rookie cards coming through the doors, and probably seeing more, I don't know, footy cards actually starting to get graded? Actually grading.
I know PSA does grading on footy cards. I'm not sure about BGS on that front.
Yeah, I've seen Beckett slab footy cards too. Yeah. We've had some customers send them through. I think it certainly ends up coming into footy cards, whether it's Aussie rules, whether it's NRL. NRL isn't really a specialty of ours at Cherry, but AFL certainly. It's a new thing for a lot of people in that hobby, in that part of the hobby. So, things like grading, things like all those new people coming into the hobby who don't have the historical attachment to prices that the rest of the established people in the hobby have. I'm not paying $50 for that card. It's not worth that. Well, perhaps this year it is, and that's that's a new thing for a lot of footy collectors. And I imagine things will, like it will with basketball, I imagine things will settle as a lot of new people come into the market. Many of them might discover, well, this isn't really for me, or it's not as easy as I thought it was to make loads of money with footy cards. So I'm going to go and try the next get rich quick scheme. So some of that heat, I think, will come out, but it is it's definitely something that we need to acknowledge, that it is a new thing for footy cards. That sellout of Dominance was astonishing, under 2 minutes, and all those boxes were gone when it was something that would take a couple of weeks in 2019, and longer in 2018. That this year is not the year to wait and see on cards.
Definitely.
If you're going to wait and see, then you're probably going to miss out. So if it's something that you really want to do, you really want to get into, then pull the trigger quickly. Otherwise, have a look at the aftermarket, really.
Definitely. That's we actually had an interesting chat about it last week on the podcast, and we came up with, we did a bit of marketing and I don't know, just like company projection for Select, and we thought with the current climate, and obviously they have to have a look and see what happens in the next 6 to 12 months in the card market for themselves. But we had a bit of a a look at, like you just said, people just trying to get in and flip the cards straight away. We're a bit different. Like, we like to, if we are going to flip a card that we like, we try to get one for ourselves. Obviously, put that in our PC. If we don't get the second one, well, bad luck. It just stays in our PC. We're happy because we actually love that card. And then we flip whatever else. So then we can, like Saw said before, try and purchase something bigger and better in value that we can add to our personal collection. But it's just one of those things. We thought that Select actually have something for everyone, which is really good. They've got like their champions, which is a bit of base and insert stuff. And obviously with Dominance, they've got some high numbered inserts, and then they've got their on-card autos. But we actually thought that it could be a perfect opportunity for Select to tap into that market now with sticker autos for a product like Dominance in that mid-level. And then, because they have Supremacy, and then they could obviously potentially release a high-end product kind of like Flawless and Immaculate, where it's 10 cards per box. You get your legends to sign, even your modern-day champions, on-card autos, potentially introducing patches and jerseys.
Tony Lockett's, Gary Ablett's.
Yeah. Like,
you know, you got Jason Dunstall. You still got legends here, you know. So, like, I mean, I see it as huge potential for Select.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Grayson speaks with Select on occasion. I know he spoke about it on the podcast with Beckett a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
If I'm at Select at the moment, I'm thinking, wow, what other sets can we get out in the next 12 months? Because there's the interest is clearly there. So can we bring out more mid-end stuff? Can we bring out higher-end stuff, you know, or you know, mid-high tier stuff, like you say, that is sort of geared towards breaks or something like that. Obviously, Supremacy is is the jewel in the crown. Came out last year with the huge sellout again everywhere. That didn't take as quickly as 2 minutes. It was still a couple of days, but still sold out. And, you know, it was in the newspaper of, you know, what was it, like the quad coach auto.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So definitely, if I'm at Select at the moment, and I imagine they're thinking, what else can we get out? I mean, I would shudder to think the amount of organisation and player approval and AFL
definitely.
you have to go through to create a set. I would not want to do it myself.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I'd be thinking about what else can we get out, because clearly the interest is there.
Well, they got to take something, the AFL. Like, I mean, they've had to cut costs, so here's an opportunity for them to get their players to sign a few more autos, make some more income for the league. I mean, we're in a time, so I think it's a good opportunity for them to give back and sign some of these sticker autos and get a few more on card autos. I think that's the big potential, and like a strictly, but maybe like just a insert based with, you know, your 1 of 1, 5 to 10, then maybe like to 49, and then like a to 99 of you know, certain players or whatever. I think there's potential for a set, something like that, where they focus solely on that.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. Yeah,
that's where they're lucky, as we said, that they've got those low end products for people and kids and stuff that they want to collect, and even people like ourselves that might just be interested in collecting just sets of products. They can go out and get champions and collect a set of that and bring that joy and have a collection and a set of something, where now they've actually got the platform, and like we said, they're in the perfect position at the perfect time. As we said, we just hopefully they don't saturate it with so many products to lose track. But like you said as well, Charlie, to get the authorization to do products is much more difficult starting up than what Panini does with the NBA, where they can just go and get guys to sign, and it's much easier for them. But it's really good learning curve for them, and it's fantastic to see it an Australian product selling out so quickly.
Yeah.
With another thing that we focus a lot on MMA on this show and Formula One and obviously soccer. I know we had a bit of a chat during the week about the Formula One cards coming out in December, but as we said previously, there's a market for everyone. And just touching on those F1 cards, they look absolutely unbelievable. I think that by giving fans of MMA and Formula One more of an opportunity to go and collect something of memorabilia-wise, because I definitely know Formula One, being a big fan, going to buy memorabilia, it's always like a helmet and a replica steering wheel, and it's just like, well, I can't afford that. So, but obviously getting the cards and stuff, it gives them more of a range to choose from, which is fantastic. So what's your thoughts on those cards and how they will be received when they're released in December?
I think that'll be interesting because we've got a lot of people messaging us at the moment. I'm sure it's happening with other card people at card stores. We get messages about those F1 cards every day. We get questions in the stream about them every day. So clearly F1 has a massive and passionate fan base. However, it will be interesting to see how that translates into purchases once they come out, because they don't always line up. The cards themselves, I agree, look fantastic. It's Topps, isn't it? Has that?
Yeah, Topps has that. Yeah,
and I think they first put out a higher end one, and now there's a sort of an entry level product as well. I think they have. And no doubt they'll do probably stickers as well. Yeah. I think obviously F1's got a huge following, and I'll be interested to see how that turns into the market once it comes out, because the cards look fantastic. So if that's another sector that can grow, I think that's great. MMA is not specialty for me. It's a tricky one for a market because of the brevity of those guys' careers often, and the infrequent nature to their fights. That's how I sort of assess it. It's a tricky one for collectors in that sense, because they do fight so rarely that you don't hear from them as often as a basketball player or a football player. But there's still some big MMA, big UFC collectors out there who will snap it up. I mean, if you're a UFC collector at the moment, you're probably pretty happy that everybody is losing their mind on basketball cards and football cards, and they haven't come and discovered your little corner yet.
Yeah, definitely.
And soccer as well. I think soccer, probably like we discussed before, it'd be, if you were looking at soccer and the way people are talking about soccer, it's, as we mentioned before, it's probably the ones to snap up are the vintage ones, in my opinion. If you're looking at soccer, you're going to be looking at Ronaldo, you're going to be looking at Messi, those sorts of guys who have the legacy sort of sewn up, like LeBron, and then you're, with the remainder of your funds, you're looking at the new rookies.
Definitely. I know stickers are massive over there as well. So a lot of people collect rookie stickers.
Yeah.
I know John was saying a bit to me before about how people aren't taking prices officially as like gospel over there. So can you get into that a bit, John, and explain your thoughts on like the soccer card market, how like they were so the prices?
Oh, right. Yeah. So there's a lot of sort of talk amongst what I see in socials and big guys in America saying that the soccer market is artificial, sort of like pumped up more than what it's cracked out to be. I'm of the view that that's not the case, but I just want to know your view in that sense when it comes to, I mean, you can only talk about Cherry's experience, but I just want to know in sense of like, selling product, filling breaks in regards to soccer, how easy that's been and going along, how easy you've been able to find those things and push that product. Give us a sense on the market in Australia.
It's night and day for soccer for us. Definitely. I mean, 2 years ago, I can recall Grayson having boxes and boxes of select soccer that he literally could not give away, sitting on the shelf, and at $80 or $90 a box, and now it's completely different. I mean, breaks feel Chronicles soccer breaks fill very quickly. The Impeccable, the hype and the excitement around Impeccable set recently was huge. So the following, I mean, we know that soccer is the number one game worldwide. The following is huge. The fandom is huge. The following here in Australia is large. There's a big contingent of Chinese followers as well. So it's been night and day, the popularity as far as we can see it. Interesting that guys in the States saying that it doesn't have the following. I don't know what that is. Maybe they're not seeing it from outside the US. I mean, US is more centered on, like as we talked about before, on football. Football's their number one for cards, for sport, so perhaps they don't see it yet.
Yeah, I've heard them mention the fact that it's more in the sense that they're not selling cards from the US to outside the US. It's like US, within the US mainly that they're selling cards, and they're trying to say it's not really collectors. It's just like guys thinking that they can make more money flipping soccer cards, and that's where predominantly the market and how it's sort of artificially pumped. There's no actual true collectors in it. But then I've heard another interview. There's I watched listened to if you're familiar with Slabstocks, they're massive on Instagram, and their interview with a guy in Germany, and he's preached that the availability of products in their store, it's not as prominent. And I think that's where once Panini taps that market and your Tops taps that market, where they get more product over there and get it available, so it's getting opened up over there, then there will be more collectors there, and then that will drive the market bigger.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. I mean, if massive card stores in the US aren't able to get enough product, which is what they say, then certainly card stores in Europe and around Asia and Australia can't get hold of enough either. That's the name of the game this year. Certainly is hi guys, we've had to halve your allocation or something like that. That's most of this year. So yeah, European guys definitely they definitely struggle to get as much product in, and hopefully if we factor in some of the things that Panini and Topps have been doing to try to address it, like Topps recent, they've gone with I think a $40 a month subscription service, which is I think an interesting play and a good play, so that people have that guaranteed rip every month.
Yeah.
Panini, no doubt, have seen that because, they all sort of borrow ideas from each other. So I would not be surprised if something like that came out from before the end of the year. We've got, something like Clearly Donruss, which they announced over the weekend. That's another set that they're obviously trying to take some heat out of the market.
Someone said that Jar and Zion are going to get carpal tunnel syndrome in their wrists with the amount of autos they've been forced to sign.
Yeah, they might do. Yeah. Well, neither of them have much to do at the moment, so they can.
Yeah, that's true.
So they can find some autos. And they're doing. I think Panini also have it's got a premium hoops coming out, which is before the end of the year. It's not a new set. I think they did that last year as well, but they'll do that again. It's got to happen so that things can settle a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
People will get too pissed off and they'll leave.
That's exactly right. And that brings us to our last question for you today. Really, is the secondary market, and we just want to know, because as people in the hobby, we want as many people to come into the hobby as possible and have an entry level to get into the hobby. And obviously going through yourselves, if you get the product retail straight away and you can sell it at the retail price and people can go buy it. But the issue that we're finding is people that, as we've said before, that are in for the get rich quick schemes, they come in and they'll come to yourselves and buy a product for retail, and they're for the intention not to rip the box. It's the intention to flip the box. So then it effectively becomes like the sneaker market. So you go buy a Prism and then retail price, and then you flip it for 3 times its amount. And I just want to know what that's like for yourselves at Cherry, when obviously then you can't get retail, and then you have to, and when you do bring it into your store, looking at the price and you're going, well, we've got to fill breaks here. Like, we can do it at retail, but yeah, just the pricing is just all skewed after, all the first run products are gone. The retail stuff, it's just, it just gets crazy. And that's where I think it becomes difficult for people that want to come in and get a Prism box for this year. Be like, I want to get a Zion, or I want to get a Jar. And it's like, well, it's practically impossible because they're not going to spend $1,000 plus on a box.
It's the biggest thing for this year. It's the big factor that has everybody talking this year, and it's one of the reasons that the companies are looking at things like a subscription service and variations on sets and things like that, so that they can get more product out there, so that prices can begin to head down or begin to normalize. It is a tricky one, and it's because of the things that we talked about at the top of the show, with the massive interest coming into the hobby, the lack of other entertainment options, so people start looking at cards, or certainly the lack of live sport being on, so people turned on live breaks more, and people thinking that they could flip a box and make a lot of money on it. It is a tricky one. It's the other thing, and it's a good thing that you said at the beginning, because a lot of people don't say it, is that it's good to have new people coming into the hobby.
Definitely.
That's one of the first things that you said, which is an excellent thing to hear, because it's there. We looked at it I looked at it in a clip this morning from a live chat I did with G a couple of weeks ago, that there is a lot of people who would rather new people didn't come into the hobby, which is a shame, I think, because it's what keeps it going is the new people coming in, whether it's new adult collectors or mums and dads passing the collecting hobby onto the kids. And so it's something that I know the companies are aware of, and they're looking at to try and create more SKUs, more product, more brands, to hopefully get more product out there. But it's that supply and demand factor here has just gone out of balance into demand, and it's just created big changes for established collectors in the hobby, that it's just really unprecedented to see what's happened to, like a box of Prism or a box of hoops, that was, when we had it back in October last year, I think we still had it for $150 bucks, maybe $199 a box.
We wish.
Yeah, that was in November. It's not even, They sat there.
I was lucky enough to get some nice optic blasters from Cherry for $50, so that was nice. I was able to get a few of those.
Yeah.
On the first release, and then they just went bananas after that.
Yes. Yeah, people discover in them, or they discover what other people might be willing to pay for them, and certainly with the hype around Zion and Jar this year, it just sent box prices way up.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff. I think we just lost John, and you said, no, you're back, John.
Back.
Yeah, Charlie, I think just your video's gone off, but that's all good. That was we can still hear, which is good. But that's it from us today. Thank you so much once again for joining us on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All the Cherries socials, address for the store will be put in the description below. And if you're not an Australian listener, they do ship worldwide, so you can jump onto Cherry's website and purchase some products. So thank you once again. Really appreciate it.
Charlie. Really appreciate coming on the show, mate. It's been a delight.
Oh, no worries at all, guys. No, thank you so much for having me on the show, and keep it up, keep pumping them out, and I think over the next couple of years, there's going to be big things happen in this hobby, and the people who grind away and show up every day to put their social media posts out and grind out the podcasts every day or every week, they're the people who are going to be there at the end of the hype.
Awesome. Thanks for that. We really appreciate that. So we'll keep it up, definitely.
We'll keep it up.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for tuning in, ladies and gents, and it's been another episode of Double Coverage featuring Cherry. It's been Dom and Sauce. Peace.
Peace out. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcasting app. Also, if you could please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that would be awesome. Don't forget to follow us on socials at DBLcoverage_ on both Instagram and Twitter to join in with your opinions.